As far as the community, Vasey was a very, very tight-knit community. Now, the church sat on the Madonna side. So if you, I'm dating myself when I say the County Road 23, when you got to Waverly, it was Madonna, Floss, Tiny, and Tay. But those boundaries have all changed because of Clearwater and Springwater and all that. But that's where the 4 townships met. Anyway, and in public school, we learned, we knew all the provinces and the territories. We knew all the capitals of those provinces, and we knew all the counties of Ontario, which is saying something. I have American friends that don't know what the capital of their state is. You know, so one of the, we had a one-room country school, no running water. There was a pump at the back and a medicine cabinet that always had Dettol and bandages for kids. And that pump, I think, was to wash hands. The bathrooms, and it was a boys' bathroom and a girls' bathroom, were just like an outhouse kind of bathroom. They weren't flush or anything. The stove was a wood stove, and the teacher's husband came over and had that stove just a roll in for when school went in. As far as running water, it would take 2 of us to take the pail and go over to Les Edwards's water pump out in his yard, and we pumped. You had to pry it and pump it, and we carried the water back to the classroom every day. We were visited by Dorothy Carpenter, the public health nurse. She came probably monthly, and also Mrs. Self was our music teacher. She came every week, and I just loved when I saw her walk. It was always fascinating to me to see what these ladies were dressed in, like it was total business attire, until Needle Day, and she shows up with a white coat on. Well, everybody had their mothers there. Everybody's wailing, you know, vaccination day or whatever. And what else did we do? We had many bus trips. We fundraised all the time. And that's where I was talking about the Simcoe County and all the counties of Ontario. We had a bus trip to the Parliament buildings, and myself and someone else, and it could have been Glenda, we were page girls. We didn't say anything, but we carried little pieces, you know, into the Act of Parliament. And we were all given, so there were many schools there. We were all given this box, and they were about, I'd say, 1/4 inch thick cardboard, yellow, with all the counties of Ontario. And in school, we learned a lot of actual stuff, like John Diefenbaker and Lester Bear Pearson, where the 2 candidates back then, you loved one, you hated the other, vice versa. So we felt we knew enough about them, we learned enough about them and what they were all about, that we really thought they were our friends. And we also learned all the townships of Simcoe, where we lived. And a lot of people couldn't tell you the townships. Maybe even my townships aren't the same because everything is double now. But we learned so many practical things. And we had spelling bees, and boy, there wasn't a bad speller in that whole school. Mind you, there was only 10, 12 kids. When I started grade 1, I was in grade 1 and my cousin was in grade 8, and the rest were boys, 8 boys. So 10, 12, that's all there was, usually 2 from each family. And the teacher was more motherly and grandmotherly than, which didn't give us a good preparation for high school. That was shell shock when we started high school. So anyway, back to the Vasey community. It was very church oriented. We belonged to young peoples and the youth groups, and we had sleigh riding parties, and we had baseball games, and then the families all had their reunions or annual reunion or annual picnic and then a 10-year reunion at the Vasey ballpark, which has really improved now from when I was there. When I was married in '69, our wedding was at the Vasey church, and the ladies of the church cooked that whole supper. There was no in-house stoves and all that kind of stuff, so it was all brought in but hot. So anyway, through public school, we worked hard on the farm. It was from morning till night. We did chores before we went to school. We walked a mile and a half to school and a mile and a half home. My dad went to that same school. He said he walked a mile and a half to school, uphill, and 2 miles uphill home. He didn't come straight home. And then the Vasey Road was tarmac, I'll call it tarmac. And the county boys, the Department of whatever they were called back then, and we knew them all, Gary Hamilton and the graders, the plows, the whatever. And the snowbanks were so high that you could climb that snowbank and walk over the wires. You know, not really a safe place to walk home for a bunch of kids that were always into something. Anyway, they would come in the spring and tear up that road with their big prongs and forks, and we rolled over that. And there were trucks back then, more so than cars. And it took forever for them to find the right temperature to repave the road with all the crushed stone. Oh, it made a mess of the cars. You know, it was up the sides of your car. They did that every year. So in the nice months, we rode a horse to school. Then when it got really nice and they tarmacked that road, we rode our bikes to school. And in the winter, we rode a horse. And that was our first lesson as 3 girls, to take control. So he put us on the horse, and out the lane we went, and he'd say, "Now keep control." And that horse would make it halfway to the school, and it would make a bowie, and we knew he'd be standing in that barn door, and he wouldn't let us off, and he turned that horse around and did something click, click, and that horse was out there hanging on for dear life, and we were all just hanging on to one another. I was all, because I was the oldest, I was hanging on to the mane and the rest of them. And by geez, we got that horse so we got to school rather than to turn around and face him. So when we got not to school, it was still on the county road, we just all slid off the horse and tied the reins up and turned the horse around, and home it went. And one time it didn't go home, and my dad was in big trouble for that one, because it went down past Gary Hamilton's next door to Dora Todd's, and it went through her garden. That was all up. Made an awful mess of her garden before she got it chewed out of there. Poor Dora.